If you're filming yourself in a little room, like this tiny office I'm in right now, with the camera only about 6 feet away from you, and you actually need to show yourself doing something, whether it's at waist level or on the floor, what camera is going to be best for you? Tonight, we are testing the DJI Action 5 Pro against the Sony FX30. We're going to be looking at exposure. We're going to be looking at focal length. We're going to be looking at color and what the image looks like coming out of the camera. We're going to see which one makes the most sense and which one holds up if we're doing a behind the scenes. Okay, this is our first test of the evening. We are on the DJI Action 5 Pro. We are at a 17 millimeter equivalent focal length. So there shouldn't be any distortion in this room. We're on auto exposure, 100 to 800 ISO. Now what that means is that the DJI Action 5 Pro is reading the light, and it's going to automatically set our exposure, and it's never going to dip below an ISO of 100, and it's never going to go above an ISO of 800. We are on manual white balance at 5,000 degrees Kelvin. I think that's gonna read a little bit warm, but I'm looking to accomplish warm, okay? What else do we have here? I got my trusty notepad so I make sure I don't give you any wrong information and screw something up. We're shooting D-Log-M 10-bit as we always do, and I think that this is going to sound good because I'm using the DJI Mic 2. All right, so yeah, that's this test, man. We got auto exposure. We were white balanced at 5,000 Kelvin, and we're at a 17 millimeter equivalent focal length. Let's try to go step down. Okay, this is test number 2. The only thing that we've changed, we've repositioned the camera just a tiny bit, and we have gone down to a 15 millimeter equivalent focal length. All the other settings on the Action 5 Pro are the same. I got my little camera bag here. Are we exposed properly down here? Can you see what's going on? And also, how exactly am I framed up? So like I got my little camera bag here. Got my Sony FX30, which we're going to be testing later. Got a lens here, and you know, just kind of popping it in the camera bag. Should have thought this out better. Okay, and then yeah, just pop it on my shoulder, and just, I want everything to be seamless, right? I want the viewer to be able to see what's going on down there. If I'm doing something on the ground, I kind of pop up, I'm in frame, I'm exposed well, regardless of where I am in the frame. This camera is maybe 5 feet away from me right now. The wide angle, I think, actually makes it look bigger, which is cool. And yeah, I'm really curious to see if I sound on the DJI Mic 2 as good as I think I sound. All right, moving on to the next test. We're gonna go down to 12 millimeter, and that's gonna be the third and final test for the DJI Action 5 Pro. And action. Okay, third and final test for the DJI Action 5 Pro. We're at a 12 millimeter equivalent focal length. Everything else stays the same. Have a feeling that this is going to be a bit too distorted for my taste. I think we're starting to get a little fisheye effect going here at 12 millimeter. Okay, quick pause. If you find this information helpful, hit the like button so I know to keep making these. Subscribe to come along for the ride. Let's get back to it. Okay, so this is gonna be the first take with the Sony 10 to 20 millimeter f4.0 zoom. We are at a 10 millimeter focal length. The problem with this particular lens is that it's an f4.0, which means it's not as fast as we want it to be for these relatively low light conditions. I'm actually at my second base ISO of 2500 on the FX30, and I think we might still be a little too dark. I like this focal length. I like how wide the angle is. The problem that we're going to run into, I can already see, is that when we get down to do something on the floor here, it's not gonna be lit. Everything's gonna be in shadow. So let me try to get down on the ground here. So you see, if I'm down here kind of doing something, I think we're gonna run into a problem we're not gonna be able to see. I have an idea. I'm wondering if maybe if I pop a couple of tube lights on either side of the floor here. Okay, so here we go. I got my tube lights. Put them both at 5,000 Kelvin, burning at 100%. Other than that, I'm a big fan of shooting these BTS scenes on the FX30. I think the quality of the image is going to be better. It's just hard. It's hard to get all the light that you need, particularly when you don't have this crazy lighting setup. I'm using whatever's in the room here, as well as these two cheap Skytex softbox lights to light me. Now, if I were working at chest level or waist level over here, I think everything would be fine. Okay, moving on to the next focal length, 15 millimeter, coming up next. Okay, this is test 2. The only thing that we have changed is we are at a 15 millimeter focal length. We have kind of tilted the camera up a little bit to get more of an up angle so that I can stay in frame. Otherwise, the camera's in the same spot in the room, only about 6 feet away from me. All the lights have stayed the same. I've still got my tube lights burning on the ground. Once I come down like this, I don't even think you can see what I'm doing down here. I think you can basically probably just see the top of my head. So this is probably not going to work for a behind the scenes again. It'll probably work if I'm doing something at chest level, like if I have a little table in front of me or something, and I'm messing with a camera, messing with a lens, messing with a light, whatever. But anything that needs to be done on the floor is probably not going to work. So yeah, this is the 15 millimeter focal length. We're going to cut this one, and we are going to move on to our last test, which is going to be a 20 millimeter focal length. Okay, we're back, 20 millimeter focal length, and no changes whatsoever, except for a tiny little micro tilt up of the lens to give myself a little bit more headroom. This is as wide as this particular lens goes. I love the 20 millimeter focal length. The full frame equivalent of this is 30 millimeters, so that's a nice, solid, wide angle for full frame, but not too wide. There's no distortion. You're getting a decent frame. Again, if I'm manipulating an object up here, this is a great focal length for behind the scenes. Anything below the waist, not going to happen with this focal length. That being said, I like what I'm looking at in the monitor and control app. I think maybe if you're going to use the FX30, the secret is to just pop a zoom on there and try to grab different focal lengths. So what's the verdict? I don't know. We're going to see what the Action 5 Pro footage looks like. We're going to see what the FX30 footage looks like. And we're going to figure out which camera we should be using to run our behind the scenes. So what's the final verdict? DJI Action 5 Pro, 17 millimeter equivalent focal length. That's what I'm on right here. This gives me the best combination of what I'm looking for, okay? It's wide enough and I'm getting enough space down at the bottom. Everything is really well lit. I've checked all of the raw footage out in the computer, and the Action 5 reads so much better than the FX30 does in this relatively low light. And it's just easier, you know, it sounds better, it looks better for a behind the scenes. Listen, I love my Sony FX30, and I mean, that's my camera, you know, and I'm gonna shoot everything that I possibly can with that, including talking heads that I do. But for behind the scenes, the action camera, the DJI Action 5 Pro, or any of the DJI action cameras are probably going to be a better bet for me anyway, and possibly for you. So yeah, we're gonna go with the DJI Action 5 Pro, 17 millimeter equivalent focal length for the next behind the scenes that we do. That'll be scary for me. Anyway, yeah, I hope you got something out of this. Leave a comment below. Let me know what your preferred camera is for shooting any sort of, you know, camera stationary in a corner, you doing stuff in a room. Do you use a traditional camera? Do you use an action camera, a pocket cam? This was an interesting test for me because I did not expect to like the Action 5 Pro as much as I did. All right, I'm out of here. I will see you in the next one.